Chapter 2297 Moon Collapse 1. Montesquieu left the telescope and said this to Mildred. The day of fall is probably coming soon. Montesquieu pointed to the astronomical telescope and motioned Manhwa to go and see for himself. Manhwa knew what had happened, but he still went over to take a look. The bright moon in the sky looks as perfect as a plate from an official kiln to the naked eye. However, through a high-power astronomical telescope, one can clearly see the scars and mottled marks on it. Some of those huge pits can even reach hundreds of kilometers in depth. Some astronomers believe that these are craters left by meteorites. Some science fiction enthusiasts also claim that these holes may have been caused by an alien attack and that a nuclear war may have occurred. But none of this mattered, and that wasn't what Brad wanted to see. Following Montesquieu's perspective, he saw a scene that made his nerves tense. The moon, the satellite of the huge planet, has an extremely huge crack on its edge. It was as if someone had dropped this white jade plate on the ground, leaving a long crack on the edge. It is so huge that it seems as if a piece of the moon will fall off at any time. This, judging by the area, this crack is at least over 100 kilometers long. And that doesn't even count the unstable debris surrounding the other tiny cracks. Manhwa's voice also began to tremble. If such a large piece of moon rock fell, it would definitely fall towards the planet due to the force of gravity. What will be brought to mankind at that time will be an unimaginable disaster. Even after passing through the atmosphere, the remaining debris can cause a global super disaster. You know, at the end of the last era, a meteorite with a diameter of 10 kilometers hit the planet, causing global earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, and other disasters. If we look at it from the perspective of current scientific theories, it was the factor that caused the extinction of the previous generation of humans. At that time, he, the king of the Tong organization, will be no different from ordinary people and will die in this disaster together. Montesquieu stood with his hands behind his back, his face solemn. I didn't expect it to come so soon. This is beyond imagination. But according to the records in the Holy Scripture, it shouldn't be at this time. Manhwa's back was soaked with cold sweat, and sticky sweat appeared on his palms. He stood up stiffly, looked at Montesquieu, and said, "We must do something." The underground shelter has been initially developed and is located 7,800 meters underground. The supplies, fresh water, and oxygen stored inside are enough to sustain 1,000 people for 100 years. Also, regarding Mars, although the development of Elon Freeman's Mars base wasn't particularly smooth, nearly half of the first group of immigrants survived. This can be considered as a secondary consideration. Before Mildred could finish his words, Montesquieu stretched out his hand to stop him from continuing. Manhwa, that's enough.
Calm down.
You're panicking too much now, and it's making your brain lose its ability to think. As he spoke, he walked to the temperature-controlled wine cabinet next to him, took out a bottle of Grand Cru red wine from Bordeaux, France, took out 2 high-heel glasses, poured 2 glasses of wine, and handed one to Manhwa. Manhwa didn't care about etiquette and took a big gulp of the wine. The effect of alcohol reduced his fear a little. He sat on the sofa, lowered his head and thought, but the panic on his face still existed. Montesquieu sat on the sofa next to him and said slowly, "The first thing we need to consider is whether we can resolve this disaster." Resolve it. Manhwa frowned. The scene was too terrifying and was beyond the control of human power. Even the most powerful people among humans today can only cause destruction on the earth. But the moon looks so strange, as if someone cut a piece off from it. This is beyond human power. Montesquieu thought for a moment and said, "This incident is definitely not just discovered by us. The people in the Junjing Church will find out sooner or later. Since they know about the existence of the Day of Depravity, they will not ignore the changes in the sky. Now is not the time for us to fight each other. To completely resolve this crisis, all of humanity needs to unite." Manhwa quickly finished the wine in his glass and looked at Montesquieu. "You mean we should cooperate with those lunatics? But what if this is the disaster they were expecting? Sacrificing the entire human race and then entering heaven, isn't that their crazy idea?" The Holy Scriptures say that when the day of fall comes, the whole world will enter into the disaster of the end of the world. The gates of hell open, countless demons rush out, and the whole world will be engulfed in flames. Only those who believe in God devoutly can be spared and enter heaven. But in the eyes of the people in the Tong organization, the so-called entry into heaven means abandoning the physical body and returning the soul to the ether. That is no different from death. Montesquieu continued to pour wine for my hedral, saying as he poured, "Slogans are just for shouting. I don't believe Alexander X is such a madman. If he were that kind of idiot, he wouldn't be able to become the Pope of Baitiga and control the chaotic forces of the entire Junjing Church." Manhwa gradually regained his composure. He narrowed his eyes and said slowly, "We can't let them know about this. What we also need to do is to use our influence in various countries to make the governments of major powers in the world understand the seriousness of the matter. When the time comes, we will assemble a powerful joint force and head to the moon to find out the cause of the incident. People from the Junjing Church have done something similar before." He took another big gulp of wine, without savoring it, but swallowed it directly into his stomach. According to the records in the Holy Scripture, the day of fall will not come so soon. Those civilized forces hidden underground have not reacted at all. Maybe it's not so bad. Because if a piece of lunar debris hundreds of kilometers long really hits the Earth, even if it is hidden deep in the Earth, it is impossible to be completely unaffected, unless they can open up a parallel space like the Ihan tribe did. However, according to their understanding, there would not have been many god-level civilizations of this level in the past 4.6 billion years. Otherwise, the Druk race would have been eradicated long ago and would not have had to go through this cycle of extinction from generation to generation. Chapter 2298 Moon Collapse 2. About the moon. Since ancient times, there have been countless fantasies that are either beautiful, mysterious, or terrifying. The only satellite of this planet where humans live has always been a mystery in the field of astronomy because of its irrationality due to its huge size. How did it come into being? No one can explain why. To date, the most famous theories are the capture theory and the separation theory. The former believes that the moon came from somewhere else and was captured by the planet's gravity when passing near the planet, thus becoming a satellite. The second theory is that the moon is a part that's separated in the early stages of the formation of the planet, that is, the twin brother of the planet. But no matter which statement is adopted, there are problems that are difficult to explain. If we consider it according to the capture theory, it is difficult for such a huge planet to be captured by its gravity. If we follow the separation theory, it is even more irrational because at the beginning of the planet's formation, according to the law of gravity, two planets that are so close to each other should have merged into one. These are all scientific theories. However, in the field of mysticism, there is another unique theory. Artificial theory. Mysticism believes that the moon was created by humans. Perhaps it is through human power that asteroids, meteorites, and other celestial bodies close to the planet are captured, and then a natural satellite floating in the sky is created. This theory is considered bizarre and incomprehensible, because according to the trajectory of human civilization development, it is impossible to understand what level of civilization is required to be able to build an entire, huge satellite. Montesquieu and Mio sat in the living room, where oak wood was burning in the old fireplace, crackling as it exploded. There was a pile of information on the coffee table in front of the two of them, which contained clear images of the lunar surface and various English materials. They know that the moon is indeed man-made. No, strictly speaking, they are not what they call humans, at least not the sixth generation of humans. The term human beings is also expressed in the tone of human beings. More strictly speaking, it should be a highly intelligent life form, the only observer in the material world created by the Creator. In short, the moon was indeed created by a super civilization in the past. Montesquieu wore old-fashioned glasses and looked at the documents in his hands. We still don't know what's on the moon. Is it sealing one of the ancient demon gods, or is it a tool used by a super-ancient civilization to escape from the surface of the planet? We still know too little about ancient history, but history always pushes us forward. We have no choice but to delve into the past and find out. Mi Huaid sat hunched over on the sofa, his head with a high receding hairline reflecting a wise light. We don't understand this, but those ancient civilizations must have known something. Montesquieu glanced at him and smiled helplessly. But will they tell us about this kind of thing? Mi Huaid clenched his right fist and put it to his mouth, frowning deeply, feeling helpless. For ages, they have been trying to communicate with ultra-ancient civilizations, hoping to find a way to survive when the end of the world comes. However, even as they followed the footsteps of the ancients, they had come into contact with them many times over the millennia. But not once was I able to gain their approval. The gap in strength is too big. Ancient civilizations were limited by the rules of the material world and were unwilling to interact with modern humans. And deep down, they look upon 6 generations as a human being would look down upon an embryo in the womb. It's not even a baby, because it's too weak. After the end of the world, the advent of the era of great mutations finally allowed humans to begin to evolve at an accelerated pace, giving them the opportunity to come into contact with ancient civilizations. However, it is still extremely difficult to communicate with those powerful ancient civilizations. For example, the Huashu Kingdom. The Dragon Clan, as the angels of the ancient humans of Huashu Kingdom, raised them. The ancient ape injected with spiritual essence was transformed into an intelligent life form. But their descendants, such as Bai Longzi today, still disdain to communicate with humans. Mi Huaid wiped his face, and his skin turned red because he wiped too hard. Ultimately, we still need to rely on ourselves. Those super-ancient civilizations must know something. The dragons of the Qinling Mountains in Huashu Country, the birdmen of the Abyss No. 51 in Colombia, the gray men of Daoshi District, or perhaps the three-phased gods of Barada. They're still observing humans and are unwilling to have too much contact. Montesquieu pondered for a moment, nodded, and said, "No one can fathom the will of the Creator. Whether this apocalypse is a sifting through or the complete annihilation of an entire generation of civilization, no one knows. After all, the Creator does not need to explain its will to any being. We can only carefully speculate on it. Therefore, no one dares to act rashly." At this point, he took a sip of red wine and said sarcastically, "As for the Wulwan tribe in the Pacific region, it must be because their civilization was interrupted and their historical documents were incomplete that they were foolish enough to appear in the outside world so early." Mi Huaid spread his hands and said, "After all, according to the trajectory of civilization, they should belong to the dinosaur people of the Cretaceous period. It's more than 100 million years ago, so it's normal for civilization to be interrupted." When this matter was mentioned, Montesquieu suddenly raised his head and thought of something. "Oh, right. I remember about half a year ago. Didn't they attack the coast of Huashu Country? What's going on now? That young man, Chaos, isn't one to sit still. If he doesn't do anything, it must be because the time hasn't come yet." Mi Huaid slapped his thigh and sat up straight. "I've asked Professor Da Vinci and our Knight of Benevolence, Sir Brian Griffin, to help them. If they really want to start a war, there should be some movement. But I haven't received any feedback yet. The organizational structure of the Tong organization is extremely loose, and the top management has little control over the lower-level members. It is more about cooperation and value exchange." Montesquieu thought for a moment, then smiled and shook his head. "Nothing is likely to happen in the short term. This is for the best. Even the Wulwan Empire is not something that a single nation can contend with." His expression grew serious. "Anyway, I'm going to let every nation in the world know that something serious has happened on the moon. Every major religious organization and every local power must be notified. When the time comes, they will unite when faced with a common crisis." Chapter 2299 Moon Collapse 3. Wulwan Empire. Zhang Yi absorbed about 1/3 of Zhenglu's original power, and the next step would be to slowly integrate it into his own part over time. He didn't need to clean up the battlefield himself. The main force was the Mechanical Legion and the coalition forces of Huashu Kingdom. They will not show any mercy to these enemies. After all, They had all experienced deep despair when the Wulwan Empire attacked them at their doorstep. In large areas of prosperous urban areas, buildings were directly broken open by mechanical life forms, and then life detection equipment was used to dig out the lizard men hiding deep inside. In an underground warehouse, a female lizard man, holding a young child in her arms, said to Xing Tian in front of her, trembling with fear, "Please let us go. My child is still young." Xing Tian couldn't help but sigh when he saw the woman's frail appearance and the little lizardman's trembling body in fear. "Sister, what are you doing?" Xing Tian, never kill women and children." There was a glimmer of hope in the female lizardman's eyes. "Really? You won't kill us?" Xing Tian smiled, but the smile on his lips slowly changed. "It's true that I don't kill women and children. But," he said, his mouth almost pulled back to the back of his ears, pointing at the female lizard man and the little lizard man in front of him, "You are obviously not a child anymore. And your child, he's not a woman either." In the terrified eyes of the two men, Xing Tian shot directly, piercing through their bodies. When Zhang Yi came here and saw the mess on the ground, he couldn't help but frown. In just one day, the entire Wulwan Empire was riddled with holes. "Why are you so violent? We are a civilized army, an army of justice. Even though we annihilated their entire tribe, I still feel that we are a force full of love. We want to bring peace and light to the lizard men." Zhang Yi appeared on the battlefield and Xing Tian, who was nearby, and other members of the fleeing force rushed over. "Your Majesty." They placed their right hands on their chests, puffed out their chests, and saluted Zhang Yi, their eyes full of the fiery heat as if they were looking at a god. Sometimes Zhang Yi would think that if the fleeing army had 1 to 800,000 members, perhaps he could also collect the legendary power of faith. Zhang Yi pointed at the surrounding ruins and said to them, "I don't blame you for causing so much destruction during the previous battle. But where are we now? This is our territory. You guys messed it up, so won't we have to rebuild it ourselves later?" Xing Tian is Zhang Yi's old classmate. After hearing this, he was stunned for a moment and immediately slapped his thigh. "Oh my God. My dear, you are so cool. You are so thoughtful. Let's move our home here in the future. It's big and safer than outside. This is great." Everyone also understood what Zhang Yi meant, and their faces were filled with surprise and excitement. They raised their heads and looked around. It's true that the Wulwan Empire is quite good at choosing places. This huge space should have been carved out from a natural underground cave. The depth is 25,870 meters below sea level. Here, there is no need to worry about any natural disasters. Apart from disasters that cannot be prevented by human power, such as large earthquakes and underground volcanic eruptions, it would be difficult to destroy this place even if an asteroid hit the planet. It can be said that those ancient civilizations were more selective about where to survive than the other. Moreover, Zhang Yi has already investigated and found that the entire cave has been reinforced with a large amount of tough materials. Even if a large earthquake occurs, the entire cave will not collapse immediately. The local collapse has little impact. As for super-large earthquakes, they are all caused by the movement of plates and can also be monitored using equipment. Usually after choosing a region to establish a country, the Wulwan Empire can live there for at least tens of thousands of years. As long as Zhang Yi and his friends are not particularly unlucky, most people will have no problem surviving and dying after moving here. As for the aliens, their lives will be extended accordingly due to the evolution of their life levels. However, the era of great mutation has just arrived, and no one knows how long they can live. Zhou Qier once studied that people with enhancement abilities, as well as medical mutants like her, have longer cell telomeres, and their oxidation rate slows down. Zhang Yi is not thinking about things that far in the future now. He simply issued an order in time, asking the cleanup troops to minimize damage to buildings while clearing out the remnants of the lizard men. After receiving the order, the aliens in each region will of course obey Zhang Yi's instructions. After this battle, Zhang Yi's status in Huaxu Kingdom will reach an incredible level. Many people even subconsciously believe that Zhang Yi's status in their hearts has surpassed that of the supreme commanders of various regions. Because of such a brilliant record, looking at the entire history of Huaxiu Kingdom from ancient times to the present, it is absolutely magnificent. What's more, winning the battle for national destiny can extend the survival of everyone in Huaxiu Kingdom. 7 days passed quickly. In this battle, Huaxiu Kingdom reaped huge rewards. Even the most ordinary soldiers gained a large amount of alien origin in this battle. Among the 50,000-strong army, only over 1,000 were killed and fewer than 10,000 were wounded. Moreover, with current medical conditions, as long as they survive, no matter how serious the injuries are, they can be cured. So overall, this battle is a complete victory. After this battle, there will be at least thousands more top-level Delta-level aliens in Huaxiu country. And among them there must be some who have the potential to be promoted to Ypsilon. By the 7th day, the entire Wulwan Empire had been wiped out. 27 million people were all cleared out, and their bodies and ashes were scattered in agricultural areas as fertilizer, so nothing was wasted. As for the dilapidated urban area, although there are ruins everywhere, the overall structure is still there. The mechanical life form engineers can repair it basically after working for a few months. Zhang Yi and his friends were finally heading back home. In Huaxiu country, everyone is looking forward to it. On the 7th day, the army assembled at the parade square in the central city. When Zhang Yi came here, he couldn't help but laugh when he saw the scene in front of him. Because next to every alien, there is an extremely huge package. Some people have 2 or 3 of them around them, and some are even half a head taller than themselves. There were valuable things they had seized. Zhang Yi didn't care. This is how wars are. Soldiers fight hard and should be rewarded in the end. Senior officials from various regions stood on the reviewing stand in front of the square, and the middle position was naturally reserved for Zhang Yi. Dear viewers, thanks for staying with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.